You don't need proof to be powerful, proof needs you first. Let me ask you something. If your life is a mirror, why are you begging the reflection to change instead of changing what's standing in front of it? Most people live in reverse. They stare at circumstances, measure what's missing, and then try to feel confident, loved, secure, successful. But the world doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to what you consistently are. And the moment you understand that, everything flips. Because acting as if you have everything isn't pretending. It's stepping into the only place where real creation starts, the inner state. In the next few minutes, you're going to learn a simple method to shift your identity so deeply that your reactions change, your decisions sharpen, and life begins rearranging itself around you, without chasing, forcing, or waiting on signs. I'll show you exactly how to return to that state when doubt hits, how to hold it without mental exhaustion, and why detachment is the secret switch that makes things move. Look closely at your life right now. What if every problem you're facing is only a reflection, not a verdict? Most people treat the outer world like the boss and their inner world like an employee. They wake up, check circumstances, read the mood of the day, and then decide what they're allowed to feel. If the bank balance looks tight, they feel anxious. If someone pulls away, they feel rejected. If progress feels slow, they feel defeated. But that entire sequence is backwards. The outer world is not issuing commands. It's reporting what has already been accepted within. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You don't experience life as it is, you experience life as you are. The world doesn't simply happen. It responds. And it responds to the quiet assumptions you live from, not the words you repeat once in a while. Your deep, habitual state, what you expect, what you believe you deserve, what you've normalized emotionally, becomes the lens through which everything forms. That's why two people can face the same situation and get entirely different outcomes. One sees an obstacle and collapses. Another sees the same obstacle and finds a doorway. The difference isn't luck. It's identity. Think of a mirror. You don't argue with it. You don't demand it smile first so you can smile back. If you want the reflection to change, you change your expression. Yet people spend years negotiating with reflections, trying harder, proving themselves, chasing approval, forcing outcomes, while silently carrying the same inner story. And the mirror keeps doing its job, showing them more of what they already believe. So the real shift begins when you stop asking, "How do I change my circumstances?" and start asking, what inner state would naturally produce a different world? Because the outer life is simply the echo of your inner atmosphere. Your reactions are clues. What triggers you is a spotlight. What you repeatedly tolerate is a confession. What you consistently expect is a blueprint. Now, this doesn't mean you blame yourself for everything. It means you reclaim your power. You stop being hypnotized by appearances. You learn to treat the outer world as information, not authority. If something shows up that you don't like, you don't panic, you read the message. This is what I've been living from. And then you shift the source. When you change the inner cause, the outer must follow, even if it lags behind for a moment. The mirror can't update before the face moves. So don't wait for the world to give you permission to feel secure. Feel secure and watch how life starts presenting reasons. Don't wait for love to arrive before you feel chosen. Feel chosen and watch how your world reshuffles around that certainty. The moment you stop wrestling the reflection and start shaping the source, life becomes simpler, because you finally work with the law instead of against it. People think this is make-believe. They hear act as if and imagine a fake smile, forced optimism, or walking around like a fraud. But that's not what this is. Pretending is trying to cover up fear. This is the opposite, it's stepping above fear. It's choosing the level of reality that produces results, not the level that merely reports them. Here's the difference. Pretending needs constant effort because it's fighting what you secretly believe. It's like holding a mask on your face while your mind is whispering, "This isn't true." That tension always leaks. You can feel it in the body. You can hear it in the voice. You can see it in the frantic need for signs. And the world reflects that need right back. Now listen closely. Act as if means you stop asking the outer world for permission to be who you decide to be. You stop negotiating with circumstances. You stop waiting for tomorrow to grant you the right to feel secure today. Because the outer scene is not an authority, it's an echo. It repeats whatever you consistently accept as true within. The higher reality is not fantasy. It's the source-level reality. It's the inner assumption that silently shapes your choices, your tone, your standards, your boundaries, your expectations. It's the state your mind returns to when no one is watching. And that state is always creating. Even when you think you're doing nothing, you're doing something, because you're occupying a feeling. You're living from an identity. You're broadcasting an atmosphere. So, act as if is simply moving your consciousness to the end, before the evidence arrives. It's letting the feeling of completion become familiar. Not loud. Not dramatic. Familiar. Like a coat you've worn for years. When you do that, you're not trying to convince the world. You're deciding who you are and allowing life to catch up. This is why it feels uncomfortable at first. You've been trained to worship appearances. You've been trained to treat the visible as final. So when you choose the unseen, the mind complains, but look at the facts. And that's exactly the moment the practice begins. You don't wrestle with the facts. You don't deny them. You simply refuse to bow to them as the final truth. You return, again and again, to the inner state you've chosen. And here's the secret that makes it work. The higher reality isn't maintained by force, it's maintained by attention. Where you place your attention, you place your life. If you constantly check the outer world for proof, you drop back into lack. But if you train yourself to feel the wish fulfilled, quietly, steadily, you become the kind of person for whom fulfillment is normal. Stay there long enough, and you'll notice something startling. You stop chasing. You stop begging. You stop needing. And when the need dissolves, the resistance dissolves with it. That's when the mirror has no choice but to change. The world trained you to do it backward. It taught you to wait for permission from a bank balance, a text message, a job offer, a scale, a calendar, before you allow yourself to feel secure. But if you keep waiting for the scene to change before you change, you'll stay trapped in the same loop. Searching for signs, reacting to results, and calling it realistic. Here's the switch. Stop treating your feelings like a reward you earn after life behaves. Feelings are not the prize at the end of the journey, they're the engine that moves the journey forward. When you live as though peace depends on circumstances, you hand your power to whatever happens next. When you choose the feeling first, you take it back. Think about it. You don't want money, you want the relief, the ease, the freedom it represents. You don't want love, you want to feel chosen, safe, valued. You don't want success, you want the certainty that you matter and the confidence that you can't be overlooked. All of that is a state, and the state is available before the evidence, because the state is what produces the evidence. But how can I feel it when my life shows the opposite? Because what you're looking at is yesterday's mindset made visible. The outer world is slow-moving. It's the after effect. If you keep letting it decide how you feel, you keep recreating it. The moment you understand that, you stop negotiating with appearances. You stop giving temporary conditions the authority to define you. So what do, practically? You choose an inner end and you enter it. Not by forcing fake smiles or chanting words you don't believe, but by stepping into the mood of the person who already lives there. If it were done, how would you breathe? How would you carry your shoulders? How would you respond to delays? How would you speak to yourself in the quiet moments when no one's watching? Let that version of you take the wheel, just for a few minutes at first, long enough to feel the shift. Then the real work begins, maintaining it. When doubt rises, don't wrestle it. Wrestling gives it weight. Notice it and return. When fear whispers, don't obey it. Return. When the day presents an old pattern, Don't declare failure, declare training. You're teaching your mind a new home. And here's the part that changes everything. You don't need intensity. You need consistency. A calm, repeated selection of the inner state beats a single emotional peak every time. Do it in the morning before the world grabs you. Do it in the gaps, walking, waiting, lying in bed. Each return is a vote for the new reality. Feel first, and you won't be begging life to change. You'll be setting the tone that life must eventually match. Want to know the real reason you can't stop thinking about it? Because it isn't random. A true desire doesn't float into you like an advertisement, it rises from within you like a memory trying to return. If it keeps calling you, it's because it already exists as a reality in consciousness, and your attention is simply being pulled toward what is already alive in you. Think about it. You don't desire what you genuinely believe is impossible. You might fantasize about it for a second, but it won't haunt you. The desires that persist, the ones that keep knocking when you're busy, the ones that return when you try to be practical, those are different. They carry a strange weight like they belong to you. That sense of belonging is the clue. Desire is not proof of absence. Desire is proof of connection. Here's where most people lose it. They look at the current scene and treat it like the judge. They say, if I don't have it, it must not be mine. But the scene is only a delayed report. It's yesterday's inner state showing up in physical form. So if you use it as your evidence, you'll keep recreating more of the same, because you keep agreeing with the old story. The moment you understand that, you stop trying to wrestle the outside world into compliance. You go to the source. Now listen carefully. Desire is the fulfilled version of you reaching back and pulling you forward. It's not asking you to suffer. It's asking you to accept. It's saying, stop standing outside the door and calling it closed when the key is already in your hand. And the key is this. You must relate to the desire as a completed fact inwardly, not a distant dream outwardly. So how do you treat it as yours without lying to yourself? You don't force a fake smile. You don't hype yourself up. You move into the feeling of ownership, quietly, naturally, like remembering something you already know. You let the mind stop negotiating. You stop saying, maybe one day, and you begin to inhabit it is done as an inner atmosphere. And when doubt tries to interrupt, don't fight it like an enemy. Doubt is just a habit of attention. It's the old identity reaching for the microphone. Let it speak, and then remove the microphone. Return to the inner fact. Return to the feeling. Not once, again and again, because the power is in returning. When you accept that your desire is evidence of what's already real in consciousness, you stop chasing it like a stranger. You start receiving it like something that already has your name on it. And that shift, right there, is where the world begins to change. Stop trying to get what you want with the identity of someone who doesn't have it. That's the trap. You can affirm all day, visualize all night, hustle until your body begs for rest. Yet if you secretly see yourself as the one who is still waiting, life can only keep giving you more reasons to wait. Here is the truth most people avoid. You don't manifest what you desire, you manifest what you accept as yourself. Your world is constantly taking attendance of your self-concept. It listens to how you interpret silence, how you react to delays, how you explain rejection, how you speak to yourself when no one is watching. That inner posture becomes your signature, and life signs its name right back. So the shift is not, how do I get it? The shift is, who am I being while I'm looking for it? Because the moment you become the one who already receives, your entire nervous system relaxes into a new expectation. You stop scanning for proof. You stop bargaining with circumstances. You stop needing permission to feel secure. And that is when things begin to move. Not as a miracle from outside, but as a reflection from within. Want to know what worthy actually feels like? It feels like you no longer argue for your limitations. You no longer rehearse the story of why it's hard for you. You no longer treat your desire like it's a distant star you can only admire. You start relating to it as something natural to you, like breathing. And that changes everything: your tone, your choices, your boundaries, your confidence in conversation, the way you hold eye contact, the way you carry yourself into a room. You don't chase attention, you bring presence. Becoming the one who has doesn't mean you ignore your bank balance, your relationship status, or your current result. It means you refuse to let those things define you. You don't hand your identity to temporary conditions. You decide who you are first, and you let life catch up. This is how you practice it, when your mind reaches for the old label. I'm not chosen, I'm behind, I'm unlucky, I never get what I want. You don't wrestle it. You replace it, quietly, firmly. You step into a new inner name. I am the kind of person life supports. I am the kind of person love stays with. I am the kind of person opportunities find. And then you act from that inner name in the smallest ways. You respond instead of react, you choose patience instead of panic, you move with calm instead of urgency. And the strangest thing happens. You stop needing the world to reassure you, and the world starts reflecting your certainty. Because life cannot keep denying what you have finally agreed to be. The moment you feel something as real, life starts treating it like a command. Not a wish. Not a hope. A command. Most people think their emotions are reactions, like weather passing through. But what if they're actually instructions? What if every feeling you repeatedly return to is quietly telling life, more of this? That's why the same patterns keep showing up. The same disappointments, the same delays, the same people triggering the same wounds. It's not because you're cursed, it's because you've been loyal to a feeling that keeps ordering the same reality. Here's the hard truth. You can't hold the sensation of lack and expect abundance to feel natural. You can't rehearse fear all day and then wonder why opportunities seem to avoid you. You can't nurture unworthiness and then be shocked when love feels inconsistent. Life doesn't punish you for wanting more, it simply mirrors what you're living in emotionally. Feeling is the bridge. Feeling is the language. Feeling is what makes an inner assumption become an outer experience. So the practice isn't forcing a smile. It isn't faking confidence. It isn't repeating words while your chest is tight with panic. The real work is choosing a new emotional home and returning to it so often that it becomes familiar. Because familiarity is what the mind accepts as true. And once something feels true, your choices begin to align without effort. Your posture shifts. Your voice steadies. You stop chasing from hunger and start moving with direction. When a fearful thought appears, don't wrestle it like it's an enemy. Wrestling gives it importance. Instead, treat it like a radio playing in the background. You notice it and you change the station. Not with anger, with authority. You ask, what would I feel if this were already handled? Then you let that feeling rise, even for 10 seconds. Relief. Calm. Quiet certainty. Not because the world has changed, because you decided the inner command has. At first, your mind will fight for the old feeling. It will show you reasons. It will bring up history. It will whisper, be realistic. But realism is just a habit of emotion. And habits can be replaced. The secret is not intensity, it's repetition. Tiny returns throughout the day. A soft reset before you open a message. A calmer breath before you respond. A moment of inner wealth before you check money. A simple inner sentence. I am supported. I am chosen. I am safe. Then feel the weight of it. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be consistent. Because what you repeatedly feel, you repeatedly invite. And the day your dominant feeling changes, your entire life starts receiving a different order. Doubt isn't your enemy. Doubt is the checkpoint that reveals who you're choosing to be. The moment you decide to live from a new inner state, the old one doesn't vanish politely. It rises. It speaks in familiar tones. It shows you the same stories, the same fears, the same realistic conclusions you've rehearsed for years. And if you don't understand this, you'll misread it as failure. You'll think, it's not working. But that's the trap. The appearance of doubt is not proof that you're going backward, it's proof that something is being challenged. Here's the mistake most people make. They wrestle with the doubt. They argue with it, analyze it, try to defeat it with logic, or force themselves into fake positivity. And the more attention they give it, the more real it becomes. Because attention is fuel. What you fight, you keep alive. What you fear, you keep fed. The mind does not hear your intentions, it hears your focus. So the power is not in combat. The power is in return. When doubt appears, treat it like background noise. Not a command. Not a prophecy. Not a sign. Just a passing weather pattern. You don't need to prove anything to it. You don't need to explain yourself. You simply notice it, and then you move your inner gaze back to the state you chose. This is the difference between a person who is trying and a person who is becoming. Trying says, I hope I can hold this. Becoming says, this is who I am now. And every time you return, you reinforce that identity. You are building a habit of consciousness. And yes, life will test you. Old conditions will show up at the worst times. A delay will appear. Someone will say the wrong thing. A bill will arrive. A plan will shift. It's as if the world is asking, are you still that version of you, or will you drop back into the old one? That moment is sacred. Because in that moment you choose. Returning doesn't require drama. It can be quiet. It can be simple. One breath where you soften your body. One sentence you repeat inwardly with calm certainty. One decision to stop scanning for signs and start resting in knowing. You're not forcing a feeling, you're reclaiming a position. If you fall out of it 10 times, return 11. That's the whole practice. Not perfection, persistence. Not intensity, loyalty to the inner state. And something begins to happen. The doubt still visits, but it doesn't move you. The tests still arrive, but they don't define you. The old self still knocks, but you don't open the door. You simply return, again and again, until returning becomes automatic, and the new state becomes your home. The quickest way to delay what you want is to keep checking if it's coming. The moment you start hunting for signs, you quietly confess you don't believe it's already yours, and that confession becomes the state you live in. You don't realize it, but every time you look outside for reassurance, you step back into waiting. And waiting has a feeling. Waiting has a posture. Waiting is a subtle form of lack dressed up as being realistic. Here's the shift. Stop treating the outer world like a scoreboard. Treat it like an echo. An echo doesn't argue, it doesn't negotiate, it doesn't decide. It simply repeats what was already sent out. So when you obsess over results, you're trying to force the echo to speak before the sound. It can't. And the more you demand evidence, the more you strengthen the assumption that evidence is required before you can relax. Detachment isn't giving up. Detachment is the calm certainty that makes chasing unnecessary. It's the inner decision that says, it is done, and then lives like that's true, without drama, without strain, without constantly measuring the distance between you and your desire. When you detach from signs, you stop swinging between hope and disappointment. You become stable. And stability is power. Now listen carefully. The world reorganizes itself around the state you maintain, not the mood you visit once. Anyone can feel good for 5 minutes. The difference is who you return to when the day tries to pull you back. When the delay happens, what do you assume? When the message doesn't come, what story do you tell yourself? When the bank balance looks the same, what do you accept as real? That's where the work is. Not in forcing reality, but in refusing to let reality force you. You will notice the old scenes still show up. That doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means the echo is still finishing a sentence from your previous state. Don't panic. Don't interpret. Don't spiral into meaning. Just return. Quietly, gently, repeatedly. Return to the inner posture of already having. Return to the feeling of being supported. Return to the version of you who doesn't need to check. And something strange begins to happen when you stop needing proof. You become magnetic. Your energy stops leaking into worry. Your mind stops begging the future to behave. You start moving through your day with an unforced confidence, making decisions from fullness instead of fear. Opportunities appear because you're finally available to see them. Conversations shift because you're no longer asking for validation. Even your timing changes, because you're not rushing, you're receiving. Keep this simple. The moment you catch yourself searching, come back. Not with tension, without shame. Just come back. The world doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to the state that says, I already am. Maintain that, and life will do what mirrors always do. It will reflect you.